everyone, it's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today. Did you know that today is Chip and Dip Day? Because of this special fun day, I wanted to share a project that had some inspiration featuring chips and salsa. And I created these using some simple products. This is a very simple card to recreate, and it features a lot of really fun elements that allows you to use some of your products that you probably already have on hand to use them in a unique way to create your own styled effects that creates this really cool salsa and chip effect. So to start off my card, I'm taking some distress ink. This is some mustard seed, and I'm using a bit of watercolor paper. This is some Strathmore watercolor paper. I'm going to paint some triangles onto this paper in the shape of little tortilla chips. I'm being very loose with the shape of the chips because chips don't have a very perfect triangular feel, but I just want to make sure I go with a more triangular shape to mimic that tortilla chip effect. After I've painted the shapes of the chips themselves, I want to create some textured effects. I'm first going to take some of the leftover distress ink that I had used to create the chips themselves, and I'm going to splatter some of that paint onto the chips to give them a dotted textured effect. I'm going to step up that textured effect just a little bit more by taking some water from my distress sprayer and applying a bit of that over top of the chips. After I've applied that onto the chips, I'll let that sit for a second before I go ahead and take my rag and lift off the color. That gives me some lighter areas and allows me to mimic the effect of the flour tortilla chips. I'll go ahead and dry that and then fussy cut each of these little chips out using some fine tip scissors. Once I've cut the chips out, I want to go ahead and start creating the rest of my card. I'm going to be attaching these chips onto a panel that I'll end up cutting down a little bit, but first I want to add on my sentiment so that way I can get an idea of how my placement's going to work with these chips and also how I want to lay out the sentiment onto the card. To trim this panel down, I'm going to be using some Tailored Stitches dies from Memory Box, and I'm going to cut that triangular shape along the top and bottom of the card. I felt that matched the effect of the chips and salsa really nicely. To create the salsa effect, I'm going to be using some texture paste. This is from Ranger. And I'm going to mix this with a bit of Distress Ink re-inkers. This is what you would use to go ahead and re-ink your Distress Ink pads. I'm going to be using some candied apple first. I'll go ahead and mix that into the texture paste. Because these inks are so concentrated, they color up the paste beautifully. I'm now going to take a bit of Rusty Hinge just to add a little bit more of a brownish orange tone to the salsa that we're creating here. And after I've mixed this all together, you can see we have this great salsa texture. Because the texture paste is textured, it allows me to get the effect of a little bit of a chunky salsa, and I think it looks really, really cool. You could try this with other types of paste, but I really like the effect that you get by coloring your own with the texture paste. To mimic the effect of having some little chunky pieces inside of the salsa to be like some chili peppers or something, I use some sequins to go ahead and fill that into the texture paste, and once the paste dries up, that'll hold those little sequins in place. Now for the background on my card, I'm going to be using some ink blending and a bit of masking to create the really cool striped effect. I used some Post-it notes to go ahead and mask off stripes that are about, I'd say maybe 1/4 of an inch wide. And I just reapplied the masks as I went along and added the ink over top of those masks. And I made sure that I overlapped the masks with the stripe that I had already applied down, so that way I get a nice seamless transition between the different colors of stripes. I also stamped and colored some lights from an Altenew stamp set called Be Brave. And after I colored those, I went ahead and cut them out so that way I can attach those to the top portion of my card here. The card panel that you see there with the chips, I've already attached the chips down with some foam tape. And then I'm also going to attach that little string of lights with some liquid glue and put some little sequins in between the strands of lights. So that way it creates a more colored light effect and it brings out the colors in the card base. I think this card is so much fun and really has a bright festive feel to it. Perfect for a birthday or any type of celebration. And of course, salsa and chips makes me think of parties as well. So I hope this has inspired you today on Chip and Dip Day. And I hope that this has given you some inspiration for creating some fun hand-drawn effects of your own. It's very easy to create your own elements to add onto your cards. And I hope you'll be giving it a try. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye!